Hello, this is Storybooks channel. New videos are posted every day. Subscribe and click the bell.
A business trip to a neighboring town was very difficult. Cindy, a young pharmacist, was sent to help receive goods. The new pharmacy was about to open, and there was a shortage of manpower. The employees worked from morning until late at night, always on their feet. By the end of the third day in the girl's head, there seemed to be nothing but the names of drugs, dates, expiration dates. Some boss from the regional supplementary. I wanted the opening of the pharmacy was held exactly on the day of the pharmacy worker on May 19. And the fact that it is impossible to process such a huge assortment in a short time, no one cared. Despite the difficulties, the work was finished earlier than planned, and all the business travelers were sent home. What a surprise it will be to the sailor, the girl thought, sitting on the train. He is expecting me on Monday, and I on Sunday. Tired but happy Cindy, anticipating a quick meeting with her lover, she opened the apartment with the key and entered the hallway. Yes, that's it. Do you understand me now? She's such a snake pretending to be, kindly, a stepping stone. But I know they don't hire just anybody at the drugstore, and no one knows what chickens are for us. What do we die of? She loves Mark, but she's afraid to cuddle with him. Not to sit with a man and cuddle. She's always going around, wiping, cleaning. How does she find things to wash 15 times? I only have time to pay the light bill. Even on her day off, she finds something to do. I don't know how to get her out of the house. It's impossible to talk to my son face to face. She's always cooking and learning. She's funny, for God's sake. Her apple pies are all a mess. I eat them. Yeah, I praise them. They didn't teach them how to cook at the orphanage. But I still keep an eye on her. They're so resentful of life, they can do anything. Cindy froze in horror. She could clearly hear her future mother-in-law. Sophia was talking about her to someone on the phone. Yeah, I don't know what to do. That asshole doesn't want to get married either. I thought he'd really listen to me. He came home last night at 2 o'clock in the morning with booze on his breath. He tried to sneak some girl into the apartment. I'd have given him a hard time. Yeah, the neighbors might have heard us talking, you know what I mean. In the morning, I told him to marry her. And he says, no, I won't. I'm sick of her. I tell him why she's bothering you. All morning and night, and he's super decent. You don't have to think about it. You have to act. My dear, she'll be back from her business trip the day after tomorrow. I'll give her some mushrooms. She likes my mushrooms. Oh, she loves mushrooms. With potatoes. No, why poison this case? It's a criminal case. I'm an idiot. What a fool I've made her do. And then she'll slowly move on her own. The main thing is that we all sit at the table together, so that no suspicions arise. I'll put some mushrooms in my plate for Mark and myself, but not the normal ones. Cindy couldn't believe her ears. Mushrooms, yes, she loves them, but they want to poison her. Cindy, barely audible and almost out of breath, opened the door, carefully set her bag of belongings out and paid her back. She did everything so quietly that she herself couldn't believe how she had managed it. Her heart was pounding frantically and her legs were unsteady. Only when she jumped out of the driveway did she finally get her breath back, and with a quick step, holding her heavy bag, she hurried away from the house. Cindy walked 2 blocks before she gave herself a break. She sat down on the nearest bench and cried. Was this happening to her for real, or was it a dream? Mark tried to bring some girl home, not shy of her mother, and Sophia wants to poison her. For what? For trying to be a good wife and mom from morning till night. Things just don't work out. Is it because the orphanages are afraid that I'll be left without an apartment? I have my own apartment. I moved in with his mom for Mark. He's the one who has to work. I'm not the one who's too lazy to get up early. If you told him you don't like him, you'd have left. How come? Last week he called me his wife, and this week he's dragging women home without remorse. And his mother is so strange. She's talking about marriage, she won't shut her mouth. And now she wants to poison him. But no matter how hard Cindy tried to find an explanation for everything she heard, nothing worked. In their 7 months together, Mark had never once seriously offended or humiliated Cindy. Yes, she had noticed that lately he had been very glum. But a man can't always be positive. He's got a tough job. He's a warehouse laborer for a big retail chain. And anyway, is family life always cloudless? Here the educators always told her to study, work, meet a serious man, be patient, do not have illusions. But these are all general phrases. And what kind of life can be, what should it be, when you meet such a person? No one along the line said. And sometimes Mark's strange behavior she took for granted. The girl had to endure a lot of things in the orphanage mockery of peers and older guys, when they called her gypsy for too rough appearance, indifference of others who did not give these childish pranks them a special meaning. But that was not what was most unbearable. The hardest thing was to get rid of the constant hope that she would someday be taken away from here, and she would not tell. The same verse for the 7th time. The woman would smile at her and show her what she could do. She would not be given a pretty dress. She would not be calmed. To give instructions to behave well and to be liked by someone. These girls are active and inquisitive by nature. I wanted to behave naturally, maybe somewhere to fool around, somewhere to laugh, but she was always told to behave decently, or they will think that you are a gypsy and no one will take you. Cindy did not rebel, but against the restrictions. She tried. She tried hard. She told poems well and counted examples. But for some reason, the girls were always taken by the others, the bright-eyed ones. It was a long time before she stopped living in a waiting mode. But the bitter realization that nothing would change still occasionally overtook her soul. One way or another, Cindy had learned, not without the help of outsiders. One must rely only on oneself. 3 years of arduous medical school studies passed. Cindy got a job in a pharmacy, a living, some kind of security. All this time she lived in a small apartment, received from the state. And now, it would seem, live as you wish. You are a free man now. But the girl remembered the director's stories about the fate of children from orphanages. The freedom that had fallen on their heads like a snowball. Not everyone could appreciate it. Some of them had made a brothel out of their housing, and some had lost it altogether, having taken the word of the swindlers that by selling the apartment in 5 years, under a special scheme, they could buy twice as much housing. Cindy showed good results in her studies, and apparently that is why many teachers and staff of the orphanage often instructed the girl on the way to the truth. They warned her against such cases. But it is impossible to live always according to one scheme, constantly beware of everything. There are periods in life when you just unbearably want warmth and tenderness. And then there comes a time when you want to give this tenderness to someone and share your homeless, not once lost stock of feelings and emotions. It so happened that when Cindy seriously thought about starting a family, she met Mark by chance and quickly decided that he was her destiny. At the beginning of their life together, they were doing very well and complemented each other like yin and yang. Reserved Cindy and cheerful and versatile Mark, blonde-haired and blue-eyed. But even not the appearance immediately conquered the girl. Already on the second date, Mark said that when they have children, he will love them very much and give them all his free time. After these words, Cindy, it seemed, did not need to say anything, still growing up without parental affection. She considered it a sign from above, and without hesitation, agreed to the guy's proposal to live together. Mark was not a mama's boy, but some things in their home Cindy could not understand. Sophia sometimes treated the 25-year-old guy like a child. She would pour tea for him, or bake pancakes for him early in the morning. The girl understood that it was pointless to compete with Sophia, but she seriously imagined herself as Mark's wife and tried to be caring and economic, as if she deserved the love of such a handsome man as Mark and winning the favor of his mother. One day, coming home after a hard shift at work, the girl sat down on the couch and just could not get up. Her legs were unbearably buzzing. Foolishly, she put on almost new and impossible shoes. Looking into the room, Sophia remarked caustically that the young wife could have been more careful. Dinner wasn't ready. Clothes couldn't wife. Trying to get up, Cindy toppled back onto the couch in surprise. Mark brought a basin of warm water and carefully and gently placed her feet in the water. Other than that, he forbade Cindy to get up from the couch until she rested. Here are girls dreaming of unearthly love, seething passionate emotions. Yes, it's nothing compared to the care of a loved one when you can't stand on your feet. And then everything falls into place again. And Mark no longer seems so cold and soulless. It's not the words that matter, it's the deeds. And the fact that he sits and plays computer games all evening is not such a great crime. No, Cindy was not the kind of person who is constantly shown in Russian movies on home TV. They are the kind of women who accept the blows of fate without complaint and somehow magically find happiness. It's just that the girl really wanted to find something she never had. And she was sure that patience and labor would bear fruit. The laughter of teenagers near the entrance interrupted Cindy's thoughts. She had been sitting on the bench for half an hour and couldn't think of what to do. The anxiety was gradually receding. The evening was warm, with an unobtrusive breeze blowing in her face. And yet everything was fine. Thank God they let me go early. How it would have ended if I don't even want to think about it. The girl wanted to get up, but suddenly the phone rang. It was Maria. Hi, Cindy. What are you doing home? Hi, I got home okay. I apologize for calling me so late. You know, I really need your help. What's up? Tell me what I can do. I will. You remember Sam? I told you about him. He's leaving for Dubai tomorrow, and he wants me to come with him. And Anna wouldn't let me do it on my own dime. She said in case Cindy asks for time off after the business trip. And there's no one to work. Wendy's not feeling well. I wish she hadn't gone on sick leave. You want me to work for you? Yeah, you heard me right. I really need to be with him. On this vacation, I've already bought 3 bathing suits and 4 dresses. You may think I'm an infantile fool, but Cindy, you're only 22. You're gonna get your love life together. I'm 33. I don't have to choose. I don't know what I want more, love, or to have a baby with a normal man. Probably both. Please help me. Please understand my situation. It's only 2 weeks. I'll even pay you personally, on top of what you're getting paid. Maria, I'll help you, but I have a very serious favor to ask of you too. A very serious favor. What kind of favor, tell me? How can I explain it to you? I don't have a place to live. Did you break up with Mark? No, it's not about him. I just need to sort something out. I'm asking you to let me stay with you for 2 weeks. I won't touch anything in your apartment, I promise. I won't bring anyone over, don't think. Okay, Cindy, we're talking like we're strangers. Put your feet up and come over here. I'm waiting. Cindy exhaled with relief and quickly walked towards the bus stop with Maria. Not that they were close friends, but they were very good to each other. Maria was older and wiser, and Cindy was younger and kinder. Anna, the pharmacy manager, often put them on the same shift, and just like that, between the colleagues began a friendly relationship. They could not grow into a strong friendship for one reason only. The orphanage past put a stamp of distrust on the girl. And in general, life showed that you should not tell people more about yourself than they need to know. But now Cindy understood, since she had asked to stay with her colleague. She was in for a few revelations. Hi there, what took you so long? Maria met a girl in a beautiful silk robe. Hi. I took the wrong bus. I forgot that the unit turns towards the sewage treatment plant. Well, get undressed. I've just put the kettle on. Let's have some tea. Cindy undressed and smelled baked goods in the house. Come in, sit down. The landlady sat down in the kitchen. Cindy, I know it's not nice of me to pry, but as your senior mentor, I have to know what you're hiding from someone. What if you were being chased by criminals? They tracked you down, they're gonna break into the apartment and kill us, and that's it. Cry my honeymoon nights in Dubai. Cindy laughed for the first time that night. No, Maria, there are no criminals. But I'm only here because a crime could have happened tonight. That the woman almost dropped the candy from his hand. Okay, Maria, calm down, sit down. I'm gonna explain everything to you right now. I just need to know that you're not gonna tell anyone good. No, Cindy, I won't. Anyway, Sophia, Mark's mom, tried to poison me. I mean, literally. I didn't tell anyone I was coming home early, so I thought I'd surprise her. So I did. I walk into the apartment, and with my own ears, I hear her on the phone telling her sister she wants to treat me to some special mushrooms. And she's gonna put some other non-poisonous ones in her plate for Mark and me. Here under the hatch, she has a bunch of sack jars, bunches, mushroom and caviar of all sorts. I don't know why I'm always drawn to mushrooms. I don't usually go for her pickles, but I eat mushrooms all the time. Well, I got that right. You're going to the police tomorrow and report a crime. No, I'm not going anywhere. I'll try to figure it out on my own. Olda, nowadays investigators don't have primitive methods. They can print out a phone conversation and nail the old woman for even intending to poison you. You're right as always. But there's one thing. Sophia, Mark's mom, who I live with. So you want to discount her as a future mother-in-law? And the fact that you could get poisoned and die, that's just a small thing. Cindy, shut up. I'm sorry, Cindy, just no love carrot should obstruct justice. I know from my own life experience, the problem has to be dealt with head-on. What if they don't give you mushrooms, but fried potatoes with rat poison? You like potatoes too, don't you? Cindy sat and stirred with a spoon, having already left the tea. Maria didn't calm down. I'm sorry, of course, that I'm here with my advice. I want to do what's best for you, so that you don't get hurt. Would a normal, loving guy take the side of a mom who's gonna poison his girlfriend? I think he would. Cindy said sadly, there can be many girls, but a mom is one, and he's her only son. Well, of course, if it's a picture son, he'll indulge his mom in everything. He'll make tea off your head and give you a drink, just to be sure. But I think you should understand, friend, people meet each other in trouble. Honestly, when I had you like, a loving husband. We had a great life, we went on vacations, I was young. And you're still pretty. Oh, thank you. So I was young, naive, and thought that they would love me till the grave forever. But then the unexpected happened to me, or rather pregnancy. I suffered, I had an operation, and everything seemed to end well. But then he lost interest in me all at once. I went to all the decent doctors in our city. They wrote me 10 papers that everything was fine, that I'd have kids. And he still looked at me like I was second-rate merchandise. You know the ending. And now, after all this time, I realize it was meant to be. There had to be a moment that set things right. I understand you, Maria, all Cindy, I'm boring you already. I feel at home, whatever you want, eat whatever you want. Don't bring in the men. Maria laughed contagiously. Come on, just kidding. I know you all, I put you to sleep on the couch. In the morning, they went to the pharmacy to negotiate with the manager about working shifts. Cindy stayed at work, and Maria, having already folded a suitcase of things, went straight to the airport. It was still 6 hours before the flight. At work, Cindy got a call from Mark. The guy was sure that she was now in another city and was already waiting for her to come home tomorrow evening. Feeling jealous and resentful, Cindy thought of asking Mark straight in the forehead what he was doing in her absence. But the instinct of self-preservation prevented the girl from giving herself away. And Mark, strangely enough, was extremely calm when he heard that she had a work emergency. A breakdown at work, and she would be back only by the end of the next weekend. In the evening, arriving at Maria's apartment, Cindy studied how the local appliances worked, threw things in the laundry, and put the already cooked cutlets in the microwave to heat up. She was in foreign walls, but strangely felt very calm. It was paradoxically a good mood. Even in such a horrifying situation, it was understandable. No matter how hard Cindy tried, becoming her own person to Mark and Sophia was not working. After working in their apartment, it was rare to be able to really relax. The woman followed her around, not to chastise or lecture, but to find any excuse not to leave the girl alone in the house. The constant thought of whether Sophia Pavlovna would like it, how she cooked, cleaned, how she sat on the sofa, quietly soup left her brain. Cindy herself did not admit it to herself and kept to her internal attitude. Lots of people have a 100 times harder life than she did. Why should she change? At the same time, Mark felt very comfortable around his beloved mother and did not hesitate to behave the way he wanted. Cindy had all the manifestations of love and emotions for him only outside the apartment. When young people occasionally went for a walk, Cindy walked around Maria's 3-room apartment and did not know what to do. The girl noted that the landlady was a true cleaner. Everything is gradually cleaned. Nothing had to be done. There was to Miss Mark, but immediately caught herself. There was no time for that. Now, she had exactly a week to figure out why she wanted to be poisoned. Unintentionally, her eye fell on a beautiful statue of an African woman with a candlestick-shaped cup on her head. She remembered what Maria had said about this statue when she came from Tunisia, where she had gone on vacation last year. She picked up the weighty woman and took out a piece of paper with a phone number. Not thinking long, the girl dialed the number, and after a minute a pleasant voice in the receiver answered, "Hello, hello." Quietly said Cindy, "Hello. I'm listening to you attentively. You see, I've never called a healer or a psychic. It's very difficult for me to explain why I'm calling you and you're explaining to me. Just come." On the other end of the wire answered calmly and authoritatively, "I wanted to say at once that I don't have any extra money. Don't take offense at me. I just heard about different cases. So maybe your case doesn't require any money at all. Is there such a thing?" "Well, of course it happens." She laughed. "I'll be there. Tell me, where do you live?" Wait. I have an appointment a week in advance, so I'll see if there's a free number. Although, I always have time for doubters. Come by tonight at 10:00 p.m. if you're not afraid to walk in the dark. Write down the address. I'll definitely come." Cindy hung up the phone and breathed a sigh of relief. The clock showed 8. We had to hurry. I'd never heard of a street like that in our town. I'd have to look it up on a map. Where is it? It was exactly 9:45. The girl stood hesitantly outside a large red brick mansion. The mansion near the house was enclosed by a high fence and looked quite intimidating. The streetlights were already on and the house number could be seen without much difficulty. Cindy's heart was pounding hard. Why had she come here? What was behind that fence? What if there are crooks? What under the guise of good fortune tellers, or even worse, pimps? And in general, it is not a good thing to go to all sorts of magicians. Sin of doubt overcame the girl not on a joke. She had already taken a few steps back, but immediately stopped. If I found this piece of paper by accident, it means that it was not just for nothing. Fears, all my life, I'm sick of fears. I can't go on living in ignorance like this, so let someone help me. Cindy confidently pressed the intercom bell. Out of the corner of her eye, noticing the camera, which was looking directly at her, the weighty iron door of the gate fell away, and the girl saw an elderly man of pleasant appearance in front of her. Hello, ma'am. Cindy is waiting for you. Follow me." Cindy walked along the paved and large stone path and cautiously looked around. In the courtyard, plants unfamiliar to her were in full green, and from far away came the delicate smell of blossoming apple trees. What a beauty! Probably the one who takes care of such a garden, by definition, cannot be a bad person. The girl's mind flashed. Wait here. The man left Cindy in the spacious hall and left. Before she could look around, a maid came to her and invited her to the nearest room. Cindy sat down on the soft orange couches and began to look around the room. It was all too modern. No heavy parterres, bulky furniture, or dangling chandeliers. Lush orange curtains to match the color of the sofa and chairs. Chocolate-colored walls, glass coffee table. It was the first time Cindy had seen such a trendy interior. But she was especially struck by the crystal vase with oranges and tangerines on the low wooden side table between the armchairs. "Would you like an orange?" The voice of a woman in a silk robe seemed to come out of nowhere. "Ah, hello, I'm just very pretty here. I've never seen everything color-coded like this, even the fruit." Cindy sunk her gaze to the floor. "Yes, my late husband loved to snack on chocolate, cognac, but the chocolate had to have a citrus note." The woman looked at the girl with a smile, and without embarrassment, it was so. "I have not forgotten the purpose of your visit. My name is Betty, by the way." "No, I'm not embarrassed. It's just that Cindy gave me a look. You were expecting a little different decor." Yeah, crystal ball, candles, all kinds of magical paraphernalia." The woman paced back and forth, and her chocolate robe fluttered with every movement of her hostess. "No, I don't need this. To tell a man what he needs." I just need to hear him and look him in the eye. Cindy took the statue by the waist to get a better look. Suddenly, a small rolled-up piece of paper fell from under the statuette. Cindy bent over to pick it up and unfolded it. On the piece of paper was written a phone number and the phrase, "Betty will solve any problems." Oh, how trivial. Cindy Betty didn't hold back. "We'll solve your problems and get rid of the extra money." It's a miracle. That's what I'm talking about. The girl shoved the paper back under the statue and went out onto the balcony. The balcony was not behind glass, and the view from the 12th floor was amazing. No high-rise buildings, window to window, only space and freedom. A large, cozy yard with garages and a playground smoothly flowed into the park. It was laid out quite recently. The neighborhood was a new zoo. After all, the bank of the river was changing, and on the opposite bank darker, whether not yet inhabited new buildings with rare lights of windows, a little bit to sink. Cindy decided to go to bed. No matter how hard she tried, the plan to figure out the strange circumstances in her head was still not coming together. The next day at work went as usual. Customer service and slanted glances, the head of the office. On the contrary, it seems that a pharmacist is free to work as he wants. In fact, trade is trade. And in the next yard opened a pharmacy, a competitor. And it was necessary at all costs to keep the customers of old ladies from neighboring houses. Anna clearly kept her hand on the pulse, so that the staff first of all advised expensive drugs. They told about cheap analogs of expensive drugs to the customers. But Cindy's born honesty kept her from doing so, which are strictly prescribed in the prescription. The other was simply to give good professional advice. When, for example, an old grandmother asks for ointment for back pain, and she does not have a lot of money. In these cases, Cindy simply has no moral right to offer her an expensive ointment, when there is exactly the same one with the same quality of active ingredient, only cheaper. Such liberty constantly annoyed the superintendent. After all, their pharmacy chain was private, and both salaries and bonuses depended on the sales plan. But all this was nothing compared to the feeling Cindy had when customers thanked her for her help and told her that the ointment or pills had worked well, helping everyone who came to the pharmacy with their physical and mental pain. Cindy felt a great relief, as if she had helped her own mother or grandmother. And the customers, in turn, also shared with the girl kindness and warmth of heart. Once during a break, Anna told Cindy to come to her office for a conversation. The girl thought that they wanted to blame her again for the low sales of imported vitamins and cough syrup. She didn't expect the conversation to be about something else entirely. The manager thanked Cindy for her hard work and help in opening the new pharmacy and informed her that she had found a worthy replacement for her, and not just any pharmacist, but a pharmacy technician. Today, she can finish her last day of work and look for another job. The new employee starts tomorrow, and Cindy will be fired without any problems. All attempts to have a nice talk with Anna came to nothing. The woman was adamant that complacency is not welcome in their line of work. And the plan is the plan. How can this be? I'm a good employee, and I was thrown out like a dog. Cindy walked down the street from work and mentally tormented herself. I tried for people, and who else would I try for? And sales were good. And a lot of people came to us. The girl felt sorry for herself. It was like something broke inside. Okay, Sophia and Mark, I never became for them. But work is my mainstay in life, my vocation. How could it be that I even lost it? Cindy came into the apartment and sat at the banquet. That's kind of weird. I wanted to solve one problem, and I got a whole bunch of problems. I can solve anything. Cindy repeated this phrase and came closer and closer to the African statuette. It's simple. The woman sat down next to Cindy. You know, Betty, I don't feel comfortable talking about this, but let's talk about payment right away. How much will you charge for your services? Listen, how's Cindy? Look, Helen, I won't charge you yet, but not because I don't need it. Or I'm doing charity work. I just see that you need it more right now. And when things are going well, then you can bring me some. When things are good? Yeah, that's right. Betty, I came to you because my soon-to-be mother-in-law wants to poison me. Well, she wanted to. I overheard her on the phone and snuck out of the apartment. My young man, Mark, Her son thinks that I am still on a business trip and does not know anything. I am now staying at a coworker's apartment, and today was my last day of work. I've been fired from my job. I'm Cindy the pharmacist. It's good. It's very good that all this happened to you just fine. The girl looked at Suzanne in surprise and froze in mute question. There is a proverb, if it were not for luck, but misfortune helped. And this is just your case. Mark is not your man at all, and you should not suffer and kill yourself over it. But I love him. I wanted to start a family with him. Sweet girl, it's normal at your age. Putting people on a pedestal, and none of us are immune to mistakes and disappointments. But stop making excuses for people who take advantage of you. Stop showering them with your kindness and love. Do you need to concentrate on other things right now, on finding a new job? Cindy asked quietly. No, don't worry about work. What's important for you now is to find your mother. You will help her, and she will help you. The main thing is not to mind her help. The girl sat still. What she had stopped thinking about for years was a pipe dream. Now was so close and sounded so true that all other questions for Cindy simply ceased to exist. My mom's alive. I'm begging you, Betty, don't joke around. Don't do that to me. You just turned my soul inside out. I can't bear it if it's a lie. It's the truth. Your mother's alive. I can feel it. I can't tell you where she is, but she's not very far from here. How do I find her? Right now you need to go, not to find your mother, but to find your brother. He knows exactly where she is. I see that your little brother is incarcerated, but not in prison, but not far from where you work. For me, I mean, my job is not far from the police department. Is that where you're referring to? Yeah, I guess that's it. But why is my brother in police custody? Did he do something wrong? It's just a simple desire to make easy money. When you meet him, you might be able to help him and set him straight. Betty, how do you envision it? I go to the police and I say, oh, you know, I've got a brother in custody. I don't know his name, what he's charged with, what he looks like. Can I talk to him? But that's ridiculous. It wouldn't be hard for you to recognize your brother. You two look a lot alike. In fact, Betty abruptly cut herself short. I'm just telling you what I see. It's up to you to decide what to do. Madame Cindy sighed heavily and stood up from the sofa, showing that the reception was over. I believe you. Wait, Cindy seemed to be trying to delay the fortune teller. And about the poisoning, why do they want to poison me? Jealousy, anger, and great resentment. You'll find out soon enough. Betty took the oranges, gave it to the girl. Eat, calm down, go home, and go to bed. The mistress of the mansion once again looked at Cindy carefully with her brown eyes and quickly departed. Once outside the gates of the house, Cindy could barely dial the number of the cab with trembling hands. She didn't know where to put the unwanted orange. The girl began to peel the fruit with all her might, all around for a splash of juice. Such a mixture of feelings Cindy had probably never experienced before. The feeling of euphoria and happiness from what she heard was replaced by heartbreak. Why hadn't she looked before? Why didn't she go anywhere? Maybe it was because she had been beaten into her head since childhood that her mother was dead and there was no one to look for. Did the people around the girl know the true state of affairs, or did they deliberately want to protect Cindy from unnecessary worry and suffering? How could she believe them? Why had there never been a similar circumstance with poisoning? She wouldn't even have had the thought that it was possible to address to the director of the orphanage, to the archives, to the passport office. There's lots of other places. Yeah, even people like Betty. The feeling of resentment at herself and dissatisfaction with the reception, which gave hope and more questions, turned into a severe headache. Arriving at the apartment, Cindy immediately popped a pill and fell into a dream. The next morning was no less interesting than yesterday. No sooner had the girl woken up and picked up her phone than she saw 8 missed calls. Anna Cindy had set the phone on silent and silent mode since the evening so that no one would disturb her while she was at Madame Cindy's. Without hesitation, she immediately dialed the superintendent's number. Anna, hello. What's wrong? I haven't turned in some reports. The girl's voice sounded confident and even rude. Cindy, I'm sorry to bother you. It's just the new employee quit. She got scared, I guess. We've had a non-stop incident. It's a long explanation. Could you come to work? Anna come out for a while or something. You know, I don't even know what to do. Maybe she'll come to her senses and come back. I mean, you're ready to shut me out again. Like there's someone better on the horizon? Cindy, it's definitely you I'm talking to. Anna, don't be sarcastic. I worked at your pharmacy for 2 years, and you fired me just because I didn't push expensive American vitamins on your customers. Expensive American vitamins, although I was selling our excellent vitamins with no worse composition. There was an awkward silence on the other end of the line. If you want to go to work, I have a few conditions for you. You must let me work in peace and not poke me for every pill not sold. And the second is that I get the same bonus as the other employees. I get the most customers on my shifts. And I'm not just meeting sales targets, I'm meeting them. Cindy, do you understand what you just said? I don't just understand, Anna. I'll tell you more than that. You've been taking advantage of me all this time and acting not like a professional, but like a person who only cares about profit. How many uncertified drugs have passed over your counter? How many people have you forced to offer those drugs to? And if any of them got hurt? Cindy, the voice of the superintendent, a hustler. Come to work today. I'll agree to your terms. Take it easy. Everything will be fine. Anna, I've already got some important things planned for today. But tomorrow, I'll be able to go on the second shift. Would you be so kind as to have the paperwork done by the time I get there so I can get to work right away? Okay, Cindy. We'll be waiting for you. Cindy put the cell phone on the nightstand and sat on the bed dumbfounded by her boldness and non-toxicity. So that's how it works, not being nice to everyone all the time. Maybe Betty is right about swinging her kindness at everyone, though I won't jump to conclusions. My restraint has at least saved my life. But being braver is definitely something to be brave about. An hour later, Cindy was at the police station near the pharmacy where she worked. Hello. Cindy walked up to the front desk window and leaned in. I'm sorry, my request will seem very strange to you, but I've been told that I have a relative detained here. A young guy, I don't know his name, but he looks a lot like me. The officer on duty looked at Cindy with undisguised suspicion and asked for a passport. Here you are. The girl quickly handed over the documents. The policeman approached a second officer sitting nearby. They both looked at Cindy carefully, then at her passport and looked at each other. Wait a few minutes, sit down over there, said the officer on duty and started to call someone on the phone. 5 minutes later, a man with 5 stars on his epaulettes approached Cindy. Hello, you're Cindy. Hello, yes. I'm senior investigator of the investigation department of the police department, Police Captain David. I was given your request to see a detainee, allegedly your brother. I'd like to tell you that it's not possible at the moment. We can't let you see him because you don't have proof of kinship, and only relatives or lawyers are allowed to visit. But how is it? What is he accused of that I can't talk to him? I'm sure he's my little brother, and he's innocent. But I can't prove our relationship right now because I just found out yesterday that I have a brother. Tell me, where do you work at this time? What is your marital status and where do you live? Why do you think this young man is your brother? I worked for 2 years in a pharmacy just around the corner here. Cindy pointed to the right. I live with a young man and his mom. Yesterday I was fired from my job, and today I got a call asking me to come back. Why were you fired? I think I was fired because I didn't want to force people to buy unnecessary drugs. I'm on good terms with my coworkers, and they can back me up on that. I see. Your supervisor and your roommate can corroborate these facts? Yes, of course. Of course, they can confirm everything. Tell me what my brother is charged with. Your so-called brother is charged with illegally forging a prescription for a serious psychotropic drug. In this case, it was a powerful antidepressant. It happened at your pharmacy. The new employee who just started yesterday was very professional. She told this young man that the medication had just arrived and that he needed to be in the pharmacy for 10 to 15 minutes so that he could buy it back, while the guy was waiting and our officers managed to drive up to the pharmacy and detain him. I'm gonna ask you straight out. You assisted your brother in this matter. Me what? Yes. How could you think I would go against the law? I'm well aware of the risks involved in such things. In fact, if I wanted, as you say, to help my brother, would I send him to a woman I didn't know to set him up like that? Would I take the time to serve him myself and not call the police? Well, I don't know. Maybe you could have helped your brother if you hadn't been so hastily fired. And besides, you have cameras in your pharmacy. You'd be exposing yourself and shining a light on your own. And who knows? What if you provoked your own termination? I didn't help my brother. I have no reason to lie to you. You sounded insistent and firm. Yes, we have cameras, but every such medication is recorded in a special log, and the pharmacy staff takes the prescription. According to our records, you can easily trace when and to whom we sold narcotic and psychotropic drugs. And I didn't provoke the manager. My coworkers can attest to that. I asked to be kept on the job. Wait, Cindy, I hear you. I've already got our CID operatives checking all the information we have. You've told me enough. Now I have to go. I've got a lot to do. David, wait, please. You think I'm stupid enough to go to the police and turn myself in? That I have nothing to do but make myself suspicious? For the sake of meeting some unknown guy? Well, tell me, what reason would I have to do all that? Cindy, I may be a little older than you, but I don't look like a fool. Maybe it wasn't your brother at all, but your boyfriend, who you decided to take revenge on, and then you came to your senses. But how can you come to the department and say I think you have my brother in custody? It's not his fault, and it's not my fault either. But you don't know your brother's name or what he looks like. And on top of that, your brother's friend tried to buy a serious drug by false prescription from the pharmacy where you work. And somehow the new employee who called us quits after only one day on the job. And that's how you're doing. They're hiring you back today. Don't mess with my head. You're both accomplices and suspects. Wait, David. I can't prove my innocence, but listen to me for 1 minute. Please. Cindy, I can hardly keep from crying. I'm an orphan. I was raised in an orphanage. I've been told my whole life that I have no family. And then, by chance, I ended up with a woman. She's a psychic, and she was the one who told me where I should go. You mean you? Of course, this all seems silly to you. But believe me, desperate people can go to such experts. Betty, that's her name. She can confirm what I said. She said her brother would inform me about the mother. The investigator stared intently at Cindy and guided her with glances. But no look could compete with the girl's desire to know where her mother was. She did not care whether the police officer believed what she said or not. Cindy spoke so confidently and clearly that she was even a little shocked at her latent powers of persuasion. We'll check it out. Everything you say, I'll send my colleague to your pharmacy. Again, if you're going to be a witness in this criminal case, I can't let you see the detainee. Dryly, the man cut the man off. But I won't consider you in that capacity. Your officers have already been to see me since this morning, and their testimony is more than sufficient. They will be witnesses in the trial of this case. I will allow you to see this young man. In my presence, of course. The time of your visit, 5 minutes. Come with me. After a series of corridors and staircases, Cindy and David descended into a semi-basement room. The man led the girl into an office with a small window and asked her to wait. 5 minutes later, 3 investigators, a detention officer, and a boy with a swarthy appearance entered the office. The girl was simply dumbfounded by the resemblance to the boy. Wasn't that the main argument that she was allowed to see him? The young man was about 19, black hair, and big brown eyes. If it weren't for the nose and chin, it would be safe to say they were twins. Everyone sat down at the table. The guard unlocked the guy's handcuffs and sat down next to him, baton at the ready. It was obvious that the boy did not understand why he had been brought in. He looked at the girl with undisguised surprise. Well, Cindy, you have 10 minutes. Time is not a rubber band. The investigator cut him off. Hello, what's your name? Cindy started hesitantly. My name is Peter. The guy stared intently into the face of the interlocutor. You probably won't believe me now, but I think you're my brother. It was as if an electric shock had struck the boy. He shook and cried, covered his face with his eyes, and started rubbing his eyes hard. You could see it. He was embarrassed by his tears. I knew you would come." The young man wanted to hold out his hands to the girl, but hesitated, catching David's stern gaze. That's how it is. Cindy herself could hardly hold back her tears. "Peter, tell me what happened to you. Where's your mom?" She's alive. Our mom is alive, and she's very sick." "No, she's not lying down. She can walk, she can eat, she can drink, but she is. She's mentally ill. She told me about you. You made her sick. Why? Because of me? Because she put you in an orphanage. She was always regretting it and crying. And now she feels so bad. She used to dream about you a lot, and she kept saying you were in danger. That's what she used to say. I wanted to take these pills for her. I already told you here." The guy looked at the investigator sideways. "We don't even go to the hospital to see doctors like that. A psychotherapist, a psychiatrist, you could end up in the move house. Who will get you out? So my mother was afraid to go. I read that this drug makes it easier. I mean, it makes your head feel better. So I got caught like a fool. Peter, tell me where Mom lives. What's her name?" "My mom's name is Nadia. My mom and I live in a narrow alley, 3rd neighborhood in the 7th house." The staff smirked when the young man gave the address, but said nothing. "Peter, I'm going to ask you one last question, and I'll never ask it again. What makes you so sure that I am your sister?" The boy smiled. "Understand," the girl continued, not paying attention to his smile. "I grew up in an orphanage, and I've gotten used to the idea that I'm the only one I can't stand if it suddenly turns out not to be true. Cindy, my little sister, just look at yourself in the mirror and then look at me. We have different fathers, but the same mother. We look a lot like her. You'll know it when you see her. We're brother and sister. I don't even have to think about it. Time's up." David's out of his chair. "I'm gonna help you, Peter, I'm gonna help you." "I don't know how, but I will." Cindy tried to cheer her brother up somehow. The detention officer told the guy to stand up and handcuffed him. "How did you find me?" Peter was already asking Cindy and trying to stay in the office. "I was guest." The girl only had time to see Peter's surprised eyes, and he disappeared behind the door. "Well, congratulations on the meeting." Cindy David said with a laugh or seriously. "What will my brother face if he is found guilty?" "Oh, it depends. It's up to the court. It's up to us to present the case to the judge, and it's up to him. He could get a real sentence. They could give him probation, or even correctional labor. I don't think so." Cindy realized from the indifferent look of the investigator that it was useless to ask him anything else. "Thank you for meeting me. David, I really appreciate it. I think it's going to be all right. Everyone has the right to make mistakes. Cindy, but sometimes it's better to stop mistakes before they lead to tragedy, whether you like it or not. Your brother will get the punishment he deserves for his crime. And I don't want to bring nationality into this, but you should know that gypsies are not easy people. That's putting it mildly. Besides, I advise you to check your brother's parentage. Although I can't deny that you do look a lot alike. You just don't make me believe it." "If not to take into account your persistence," smirked the investigator. "I hear you. Thank you for letting me see my brother." Cindy looked at the man and left the room. In the first moments after leaving the police station, Cindy wanted to rush to her mother. She wanted to run, to fly, to look into her eyes, but for some reason she stopped and cried. The avalanche of emotions of the past hour literally and figuratively knocked her down. Realizing that it was not a good idea to cry under the cameras, near such a specific place, Cindy put on dark glasses and quickly went to a good part of the nearest park. The girl sat down on the farthest bench so that, God forbid, she wouldn't be seen by anyone she knew. No, she didn't sit down to once again question what her brother had said or what Betty had predicted. A sudden flood of memories came over Cindy. All that bitterness of understatement unloved. Already seemingly buried in the most hidden corners of her soul suddenly broke free and began to frantically remind her of herself, how she would have acted if she found out her mom was alive when she was 7 years old. So would she run to her mom now as if to hug and cry about her life? About how her Russian language notebook was hidden by her classmates, and she got an F, just like her friend. How one day she refused to be friends with her because Cindy wouldn't let her wear her dress. Or how one day she went up to her teacher and childishly wanted to hug her. And then she told Cindy not to. Go away later, thank you. You're welcome. Thank you for what? For not having to get used to love and affection. For always having to hold in all the resentment, anger, joy, opinions. How has that helped her in life? I live in a coworker's apartment, hiding from my roommate and his mother, who wants to poison me. That's what she was driven to by her blind desire to be loved, needed, not to be alone. Oh, how I've missed your embrace. Mom, how I missed you. What would have happened to me if you had been there? What would have been my fate? Maybe I'd be like my brother in the police station waiting for my trial, or maybe I'd be on my hands. Or maybe I would have become a good doctor or teacher. Or maybe no, I wouldn't. I'm not going to think about what could have been and torture myself. I will think how hard it is for that boy, whose mom buys medicines for a huge amount of money. How hard it must be for the grown girl who, after the wrong treatment, now can't sit up or walk. How hard it must be for the mom who has suffered all these years. No, I'm not going to tell my mom all my grievances. I won't tell her why she left me, why she didn't take me away. I don't know all the reasons, forcing her to do such a thing. It's a good thing she's even alive. Thought about it. Cindy got up from the bench and walked to the bus stop. The neighborhood Peter had named for her was completely unfamiliar to the girl. But she knew from the staff that many gypsies lived there. Paradoxically, despite her own almost gypsy appearance, Cindy did not even closely identify herself with these people. Nor, indeed, had she ever encountered them. Moreover, she unconsciously tried to prove to others that there was nothing gypsy about her. She dressed modestly and discreetly, often tucked in her curls, never had any conflicts with anyone. Yeah, and she had such a serious job. All this left no one even a chance to think that the girl could be of gypsy roots. Finally, reaching the right place, Cindy saw almost exactly what I expected to see. A small wooden house, once solid, but seriously touched by time. It was enclosed by a high iron fence. The girl pushed the wicket door, but it was locked. She knocked. Once, twice, a third time. No one came out, and just as she was about to get worried, she heard a voice behind her. Who do you want? Cindy turned around and saw a woman about 45 years old. I need to see my mom Vanessa. The woman's face changed and she stood stiffly. Cindy's daughter. Cindy looked at her mother and could not believe what was happening. This is still a very young and beautiful woman. Mom, hi, it's me. A woman ran up to Cindy and hugged her. Cindy, my darling daughter, how beautiful you have grown. The woman gently stroked Cindy's face with her hand. Forgive me for putting you in someone else's hands. I'm sorry. A flood of tears gushed from the girl's eyes. But they were not tears of sadness or resentment, as they had been on the bench. They were tears of joy, happiness, the realization that here she is, her mother, her own native, albeit such a stranger. Mom, how glad I am that I found you. How I missed you all these years. Daughter, I'm sorry. Mom, I'm not offended. The main thing is that we met. The main thing is that I found you in a hug. They went into the house. Vanessa began to manage and all apologized for the mess, then put the kettle on the stove, then tried to find something for tea. Cindy could see how worried her mother was, how embarrassed she was in front of her for not having anything for tea, and the house not quite cleaned up. The girl took her hands and held them close to her. Don't worry, Mom, don't worry. Vanessa guiltily lowered her eyes and again began to repeat, sorry, daughter. When they finally sat down at the table, Vanessa calmed down a little and said, Cindy, I felt you would find me. I believed that you and I would meet soon, but I felt something else. I didn't want to tell you this right now, but I won't rest. If I don't tell you, someone wants to hurt you very badly. The person who lives next to you hates you. Tell me, my daughter, who do you live with now? The girl told her mother about herself, about Mark, about her work, about her life in the local orphanage. Cindy did not tell her about any childhood offenses or the fact that Sophia wanted to poison her. She remembered what Peter had said about her mother being in a lot of pain over the past few years. if she needed such strong antidepressants. She didn't want to get into tears and explanations about it. Now it was necessary to think how to help Peter. And she would somehow get out of her own problems after today's crazy day of talking to the superintendent, to the inquisitive investigator, and finally, the long-awaited meeting with her mother. All other problems did not seem as insoluble to Cindy as before. The girl gently asked her mother about the pills that Peter was trying to get for her illegally at the pharmacy. Vanessa answered not at once, but sighed bitterly. She said, "I don't treat myself with such pills." "Daughter, the police already asked me." I said I lost the prescription my doctor gave me. "So you're doing great, Mom," Cindy said. I was getting upset because it was a very serious drug. "Please don't tell anyone about this under any circumstances." I hid it from everyone. Peter and I moved here a year ago. Before that, we lived in a village 590 kilometers from our town. As soon as we came here, Peter was out of control. He was rude. He started disappearing with some guys in the evenings. I got in touch with them and got him as the youngest. That's how to make some money. They say you're a real gypsy. You have a port hand, and he fell for their tales. Vanessa cried. But it's my own fault. It's my own fault. No job. I have a normal one. That's how I get interrupted with guessing at someone I don't spin. Like my sisters. I can't take a lot of money from people. They come to me with their own problems and troubles. How can I fool them? If I know what it's like. I can't see the light of day from grief. Mom, why did you and Peter move here? And where did you get your sisters from? Are you from our town? Yes, my daughter, this is my hometown. I was born here and lived here until I was 16. But as fate would have it, I left. Mom, tell me, I'm ashamed to look you in the eye. Cindy, I'm ashamed to tell you all this. I'm afraid that when you hear it all, you'll just leave me forever. The mother took her daughter's hand, kissed it, and squeezed it tightly in her own hand. Well then, pour yourself some more tea. It's going to take me a long time to tell you. Vanessa smiled sadly. I grew up in this town on the next street over. A lot of my family still lives here. My mom died last year. I got to see her. She wasn't old, she was still 64. She had a sudden heart attack. My father's alive, thank God. But we don't talk. She and my sisters still blame me. They say that if I hadn't run away 25 years ago, my mother would have lived many more years. Our family was always very friendly. But it so happened that when I arrived, there was no place for me. I betrayed my parents when I was young, and it happened to you too. They don't think of me as one of their own here. No one helps me. Even though my cousin lives across the street, or my second cousin, or third cousin. According to tradition, children should always listen to their mother and father, and I did. I guess that's how life goes downhill. When I was 16, my parents wanted to marry me off, but my mother wanted me more than my father. I was very pretty when I was young, and my parents had already agreed on everything with one family beforehand. They had a boy my age growing up. My sisters had been asked to marry me before, but my father felt sorry for me for some reason. He said I'd have time. With such a beautiful family life. So I lived like that in my parents' house because I did little by little. I was often with my sister's children, but my mother couldn't calm down. Since I'm not in the house yet, she said to my father that with such beauty, how could anyone deprive me of my honor before my time? I'll never be able to wash away the shame. We started preparing for the wedding. I had to get a dowry. I didn't like my future groom Yakov. I saw him sneaking around with my sisters when he was helping my father build a house. But you can't contradict your parents. I even accepted everything already. And then I met your father. We'd never have met him if I hadn't been asked by an aunt at the market to help her. Her daughter had just had a baby, and they were selling together. And Kelly was the aunt's name. She talked my parents into letting me help her. Not for free, of course, but for money. Said I needed to get my hand in the trade. I didn't know how to steal or guard anything by the time I was 16. I was standing on one row, and the aunt around the corner threw the third strings, as a customer something to choose. I called her right away, and he was already paying her back. Your Alexa's father was a loader at the same market. That's how we met. We talked and talked. We agreed that we fell in love with each other. He was a handsome guy, strong, tall. I liked him right away. And the fact that he was irresponsible, as it turned out later, I didn't care about that. How do you know I was? I met mine. And my aunt was watching me closely. She told my mother that I started talking to a Russian guy. After that conversation, my mother hurried to get out of the wedding. How then I wake up in the morning and she said to me, well, on the bargaining as if not trading anything. Today is your last day of work. I found a replacement for my sister. I didn't think that the love between me and Alex would flare up so much that I'd lose my head. That I obeyed my family. On the last day of work, I told him I'm not going to trade, I'll stay at home. And in 2 weeks, I'll get married. He was very upset. He was not himself. An hour later, he comes up to me and says, let's run. My grandmother lives in the village. She'll take us in. I'll get a job there. As soon as I heard that, I refused. And he told me you'll regret it all your life. You'll live with someone you don't love, shedding tears. It'll be too late. It's like an electric shock. I think that not only will I live like that, I'll have children from a man I don't love or worse, like my sister. Her husband consumes her at home, and she puts up with it. Where to go? Married with 2 children. That's how we decided. Alex and I are going to run away. I packed some things at home. I hid my bag at night behind the fence. And I told my mother that I went to my aunt to get some fabric. She promised me something for the wedding. I crossed 2 streets with the bag, and Alex was waiting for me there. We ran to the station and took the train. They didn't require passports back then. That's how we ended up in the village. And then Cindy, a little audibly, asked her mother, who did not seem to want to tell a continuation of the story. And then we came to the village. This settled at his grandmother Nina. Alex's grandmother was on his father's side. He hadn't seen much of her in his life. She seemed happy at first, but when she found out that I was a real gypsy, and that Alex had taken me away like that, she began to lament that we wouldn't have a life without parental blessing. Her son Alex's father George, that's pretty much what he did when he was 18, joined the army, and just before he was discharged, he got married. His mother got mad at him, and he left with his young wife here in our town. Had he known that his own son would do the same in 20 years, only George didn't abandon his children. Vanessa wiped them with a handkerchief. He brought up his own tears. And Alex told his grandmother, then I overheard it, that he never thought of running away. Yes, his mother gave him conditions. She said, live with whoever you want, but not with a gypsy. That's how it turned out that we had no life. Everything seemed to go well at first, but Alex got a job. I helped my grandmother with the household. But she was getting meaner and meaner every day, even though she seemed nice. And when I got pregnant, she started eating me up. I cried a lot for my parents. I missed my relatives. But how can you go back? You heard your parents from a Russian guy? I got pregnant before the wedding. My blood pressure started to rise for the first time in my life, and other ailments came out. Although I've always been healthy, Alex was getting darker and darker. He wouldn't even hug me during the last few months. He'd go out on the porch and smoke and smoke. He didn't get enough money at work. The boss said, you're not from here. I only pay well to locals, and you were content with what you had. And it's a hard job carrying sacks. I asked Alex, why don't we go back to town and live somehow? We'll be closer to our own people, and that's the first time you really hurt me. Why did I ever get involved with you? I didn't listen to my parents. If my mother and father had taken you in as a gypsy, would I be wandering around like this? You're not even my child. Who knows if you've been fooling around? Well, I was dealing. When he said those words, it cut me to the heart. I cried and excused myself. But your father changed forever from that day on. Nina urged me to go home, and I told her they wouldn't take me back. I'll live alone with my child, and I'll be known as a whore. So she couldn't persuade me. Then she went to the hospital, to the maternity hospital, negotiated for me to be admitted without documents, and negotiated some other things. But she didn't tell me anything before the birth, apparently on purpose, so that I'd give birth to a big baby and not do anything to myself before the birth. She packed some stuff for me. 3 diapers Alex didn't give me. I gave birth to you in February. I gave birth hard. Vanessa lowered her eyes. The doctors shouted push, but I have no strength. 50 kilograms of weight with you. The nurses are mad as dogs, they say. Say thank you. Why are we even helping you? You have no papers, no conscience, and all I do is cry. I think I'd like to give birth to a healthy baby. That's how you, my daughter, appeared at 7:00 a.m. And I have no family, no documents. What should I do? I gave birth to you on February 16. We didn't have cell phones back then. We had regular ones. I call Nina, and no one at home answers the phone. I wanted Alex to tell them you were born. You were so quiet at first, but on the second day you started screaming. The doctors say you're hungry, and I don't have enough milk. And what kind of milk can you get from such a disorder? 2 days later, I'm discharged, and I haven't heard from anyone. How do I get home? I don't know. I went to the nurse. I told her you know my mother-in-law, Nina. She worked at your hospital until she retired. Tell her I gave birth to a baby girl and I can go home now. And this woman stood in front of me and said loudly, "Did you come down from the moon or not? I don't need you. No, I don't need you." I cried and told her, why does she say such things to me? I gave birth to such a beautiful girl. You, when were you born? Her eyes weren't brown. They were blue and your hair was light brown. I even thought you looked like your father the first time I saw you. And the nurse says to me, "Didn't Alex tell you that he's going home to his parents? And Nina, don't call anyone mother-in-law anymore. You're her and no one can call you anything. And you've done magic on a young boy and you think it's all in the bag. Stay in your room and keep your head down." I rushed into the room, put you on the bed, kissed you, and jumped up on the windowsill. You wanted to throw yourself out of the window. A nice woman grabbed me by the legs. She said, "Where are you going to leave your daughter an orphan?" So she stopped me. I didn't jump. It just all came at once and there was no one to help me. I didn't expect Alex to be so mean. I thought he'd see you and everything would work out. And he did this to me. I was lying in the ward crying. And then a woman in a white coat came up to me, a nice woman. And she talked to me for over an hour, asking me who the child's father was, where I lived, how I got here. I told her everything as it was. And she suggested I put you in an orphanage. Cindy asked quietly, "No, my daughter, no." She suggested that I give you to another family, to give you up. Vanessa cried again. I didn't want to, my dear, and I didn't want to leave you like that. But I knew I had nowhere else to go, and I was very afraid of my parents. This woman assured me that you would live in a good family, you would not need anything, everything would be fine. I didn't know you'd end up in an orphanage. God knows I didn't know. Maybe someone did take me into a family. Since you say my hair wasn't black at first and my eyes were dark blue. And then they saw that my genes were taking their toll, that I was black, and they probably gave me to an orphanage right away. Cindy sat up to her mother and hugged her, though who knows what those people had in mind. The woman told me not to look for you. She told me not to hurt your fate. She promised me that you'd be fine, that you'd live somewhere else, that you wouldn't be kicked out, that you'd have a loving family, they would take care of you. That's how I gave you away, hoping that your life would be better than mine. Vanessa covered her face with her hand and was silent. And then how did your fate turn out, Mom? And then what happened? I left the hospital alone without you, without any documents. I came on foot to my grandmother, Alex, and asked her to leave me to live a little, until I found another place to live. She didn't say anything, didn't ask where the kid was. She just didn't say anything. But she made it clear that I could stay with her for a while. I laid there for a week crying. And then I went to the woman at the hospital who talked me into giving you up. I asked her for help. When she saw me, she hissed. She said, "Get out of here so I don't see you again." And I'm Maria. I had nothing to lose. I told her to help me with my job. Or will I come to you every day? She told me to come back tomorrow, as if she'd help me. And the next day, when I came, she took me to a secluded place, and there was a man standing there, a relative of hers. The two of them grabbed me by the scruff of the neck. I thought they'd kill me. They came up at me with such anger, saying, "Don't let your spirit be in the hospital." It told me not to go near the building itself. I was so upset at that moment. I decided to get you back, no matter what. I don't know how I'm gonna live, but I'm gonna get you back. I told them I'd go to the police and tell them everything as it happened. That there's a note about me in the hospital records. And the man laughed in my face and poked me with some cards. He said that he was a police officer himself and that they would put me in jail in no time. I cried. I said I just wanted to ask for help. Why did you do that? The man shoved money in my fist and said that if he ever saw me near the hospital again, he would put me in jail. I left the building. I was crying. I sat down on a bench. I saw young people having a wedding. I felt so sad, so sick. And I was only 17 years old that day. And my fate is such a worthless fate. I went back to Nina's house, told her everything. I showed her the money and asked her what to do now. She said she'd buy me some linens and bedspreads for cheap, and I'd go out and sell, so no one would bother you. They wouldn't steal anything. He put me near his friend Uncle Nick, who has been fishing and trading at this place for many years. He was 57 years old at the time. He was 67, and that's how I came to live with her, and I cried to you all the time. Yeah, thinking about how to get out of poverty. If it hadn't been for Uncle Nick, would you have been killed somewhere? They threw me out. Times were tough back then. Nina didn't talk to me much about anything. I tried to ask her where Alex was. Does your father live? And she forbade me to even think about him. But I didn't hold a grudge against her because she taught me a lot about cooking and gardening. I'm very grateful to her for that. I did not socialize with the local gypsies, although one guy looked at me, but I didn't even look at him. He was very handsome. And what am I? A freeloader. I've got nothing. That's what happened to you. I couldn't just spit and forget so quickly. It's been 2 years. I started to climb out of poverty. I only knew the house and the market. So I lived with Nina. It's getting duller now. And I kept thinking how I could return home. I missed my parents and my sisters a lot. And I didn't just come to visit. I wrote a letter to my cousin about Ruben. I was afraid to write to my cousins before my own sisters. Otherwise, the letter would have gotten to my father. And in that letter, I foolishly told him everything. I decided to complain. 2 weeks later, I got the letter. Oh, how I cried. How I suffered again. She told me that the letter had come to her husband by accident, and he couldn't think of anything better. He read my letter and then gathered everyone and read it again, and told me not to set foot in my native land. Since I did such a thing with my child, but I wrote, he took such a step not to shame my parents and sisters, but as an admonition to young people to think with their heads when they want to disobey their elders. And my mom, when she heard about me, yes, in front of everyone. She had a heart condition, and my relatives turned on me. I should have come to my relatives to apologize, to ask for forgiveness, not to believe a letter. But I was cowardly. I was afraid of the punishment of condemnation. I was so worried that he went to the hospital. And there's a guy there. He worked nearby, who liked me. He was a house painter who started renovating the place. That's how we got to know each other. His name was James. He looked very young. He was 12 years older than me, and he was already a widower. His wife died a few years ago. He had everything he needed to live. He had a house from his parents and a car he'd earned himself, but he wasn't happy. 3 months later, he and I got married. I moved out of Nina's, and they lived in his cabin. James was a hard worker. We lived together. That's what blood means. How did he surprise me? You won't believe the books he read and told me about. I'd never read a book before I met him. Slowly, little by little. Our business was booming. I was working, trading. He drove me everything by car, drove me away, guarded me, didn't let anyone offend me. Then we had Peter. His father loved him very much, and Peter loved his father. But we didn't have any more children. It was fate. And me. I spoiled Peter very much. I poured all the love I didn't give you on him. If it wasn't for his father, I don't know how he would have done in school. I went around begging the teachers to let him stay. While we were living with James, they put a new house in the village, bought a new car. I had a baby with my parents. I started calling my sisters to visit them. They came to visit us a few times as a family. Everyone came except my father. I gave them nice presents. I tried to make it up to them. It was like life started to get better. Everything started to run its course. But then, 3 years ago, disaster struck. We'd had our own outlet for a long time by then, and James used to go shopping. We were selling textiles. He was coming from a neighboring town. And then he fell asleep or something happened to him and drove into the oncoming traffic and collided head-on with another car. I couldn't say a word for 2 days after I found out. I couldn't stop crying. My relatives came to the funeral, and his relatives came, sisters, cousins. They started accusing me of ruining him with my trade. I had to travel all the time. I barely managed to keep up with them. Maybe they were jealous that James had made all his property on me, and as he felt, he said, "Let me draw up all the documents for you." That's why his relatives started visiting me. I'd organized the funeral myself. I had to take a big loan at high interest to make everything honorable. Peter couldn't believe his father was gone. I thought he'd help me later, but he wouldn't let me. He says, "You've been dealing with your father all your life. I grew up on my own. I don't want to mess with your stuff. That's the way it is." After James died, it was a mess. Tax audits started coming in one after another. I couldn't pay them off. And after one, they wanted to put me in jail. Alleged bribery. I sold my car and garage to pay off my debts. Then we started to sell the goods slowly. I could have hired a man to help me. But after all that grief, I just gave up. I didn't want to do anything. I resisted everything. Peter here finished school at 18. He stayed for a second year once, and 2 weeks later, he received a summons to the army. I went to one friend and another. Nobody wants to help. What's the army for him? He's had gastritis since childhood. And he's unprepared. He's neither athletic nor strong. I got up courage. I went to the military officer. I said, "I have one only son. Why are you sending him to the army?" And he told me, "You're not an invalid and you can support yourself. You've got a registered shop. So your son, like all normal guys, is subject to conscription." I think not. I don't want my son to be bullied in the army. But what kind of gypsy is a soldier? I lost you. I didn't want to lose Peter too. I found a man in a neighboring town who could help me. But he asked me for such a large sum of money that I had nowhere to go. Peter, when he heard that I needed so much, he immediately decided to serve. She says, "Don't sell the house, Mom." What am I supposed to do? Why do I need this house without my son? We packed up the house in 2 days, took it to the garage, and sold it in 2 weeks. I lowered the price and hired an agent to help with the paperwork. Sami all this time at a friend lived at home. Everything was resolved in the end from the army. They didn't take Peter. With the money left from our huge house, the only thing we could buy here was this. You can see for yourself, what a dwelling. Vanessa looked around the room. Peter didn't want to leave the village. He blames me now. He says that nothing would have happened to him if we had stayed in our native village. And the fact that I sold my last house to keep him out of the army, he doesn't appreciate it, doesn't understand it. He has no desire to study or work. And his relatives, Mom, they can't help. You communicate with them normally now. My in-laws, my daughter, they don't talk to me much. I called them when I was dealing with the army. They told me they couldn't help me. All our Roma boys are too young to get married. Almost all of them have 2 children by the time they're 18. And I didn't go to them for help. They didn't ask me to come here. I was drawn back to my homeland. I couldn't live in this village anymore, where I experienced so much grief, shed so many tears. My motherly heart told me that I should go back to the place where I was born. And I was not mistaken. I met you. I just don't know what to do with Peter. My sister told me about my son. They wouldn't even listen. You screwed up your own life when you were young by sinning. She's getting what she deserves. We've got a lot of kids to take care of, grandkids to support. You've lived your whole life somewhere, never helped your father or mother. And when did the trouble start? Did you come home like that? Cindy listened to her mother's confession and realized that it had not been easy for her all these years either. It was a small relief for her that she was a gypsy, but she did not talk and behave like the gypsies from the Tabor, and she stayed with her mother for another half an hour. Cindy drove to the apartment where she had lived all the way. The girl was thinking about how to get Peter out. She had some savings, but it probably wouldn't be enough to pay the lawyer's fees in full. And yet she and Mark wanted to. Oh, that sounds weird. She and Mark aren't anymore. They're with Mark. Vanessa's mom told me about where sacrificial love leads. Thank you, no refills. With Mark not calling or texting for 2 days now, we should help our own people and let strangers eat their own mushrooms. But what to do? Run to the bank, apply for a loan, ask someone to borrow money. Of course, my brother was a great handyman. But I won't find another brother like him, and I won't even find my own mother. But it was not only finding her own kin that was the main reason why Cindy was ready to get into credit. She, more than anyone, understood the importance of help in times of need. After all, she had help too. Maria's coworker let her stay at her place. And Betty, the psychic, didn't take any money at all. And who knows how her fate would have turned out. If she hadn't picked up a beautiful African statue, if she hadn't found herself in a completely foreign apartment. An hour later, Cindy was outside the law office. Not a moment's hesitation. The girl hurried inside. A young lawyer named Ethan listened to Cindy very attentively. You know, I have a maternal brother. He's 19 years old. Just a few days ago, he tried to buy some medication at the pharmacy with a fake prescription. It's a serious drug, not narcotic, but it's a kind of powerful antidepressant. That's the brother's name. How to put it, a Roma by nationality lives alone with his mother. According to his mother, this is the first time he has been in such a situation. I need to know how much your services will cost to keep him out of jail. Cindy, I hear you. I have a lot of details to work out. First, I need you to answer a few questions. Was your brother able to obtain this medication? No, he didn't. The pharmacist was able to call the police, and he was rounded up immediately. Was there a group of people involved in this case? I mean, was he doing it alone or with someone? He didn't do it alone. He was solicited by good friends who offered to make money by reselling the drug on the internet. But he told the police he was buying it for his mother. All right, Cindy, expect my call tomorrow. This preliminary interview was free for you. I'm sure there's a lot more nuance to the case, but I understand you're agonizing over your brother. That he hasn't been involved in any drug fraud schemes up to this point. Yes, I vouch for it. Reprimanded the girl. I have come across such cases before. It's good that your brother did not manage to sell the drug or even hold it in his hands. The price for my services will be about this. The man handed Cindy a sheet of information. Of course, it's still a preliminary rate, but I don't think it'll change much at the end. If you agree with the terms, just text me tonight, and I'll call you back tomorrow and set up a full meeting. Cindy thanked the lawyer and left the office. Getting to Maria's apartment, the girl studied in detail the rates and all the other ticklish moments. Yes, she didn't have that much money. After she and Mark started living together, Cindy rented out her small apartment on the outskirts of the city. But all the money went to the communal rent or other household needs. She didn't want to be on the dole, so she and Mark had a half budget. Plus to all this, the girl wanted to show Sofia Pavlovna that she did not come to everything ready-made. Cindy did not buy unnecessary trinkets and rags. Rarely traveled by cab, so for almost a year of living with Mark, she managed to save a small amount. She had even told Mark about it, hoping he would praise her. But the young man only grinned at the confession and replied, "Yes, you are a bargain bride. No father, no mother, no mortgage. And you will buy. Still turns out good for you." The next day, Cindy got up early. Anxiety did not leave the girl had to get ready and go to the pharmacy for a certificate of income. What if the director wouldn't take her back because of the recent stubborn conversation with Anna, or the investigator would show up and start asking tricky questions about the situation with Peter? With anxiety, she entered the building and was already mentally prepared for defense. But the excitement was in vain. To the great joy of the girl at work, she was very happy to see her. Her colleague, Lyudmila, told Cindy all the latest news. Especially, she described the arrival of a police detachment called to a young guy who tried to buy a fake prescription. The new employee reacted very quickly to the situation. But no sooner Anna praised her than she immediately quit, saying, "I have small children, and I do not want to leave them without a mother. Suddenly, this comrade will track me down and take revenge." That's why she quit without working more than one day. Ludmilla also laughingly noted that the guy was very similar to Cindy, adding there are such miracles in life. Having taken all the necessary documents from work, Cindy went to the nearest bank branch after checking through the databases and filling out all the papers. A loan for a small amount was immediately granted. The time was 11:00 a.m. when the lawyer called, and she was visibly nervous. She had to settle all the issues with him and be on time for her shift at the pharmacy in 3 hours. Finally, Ethan called her and set up a meeting at his office. Cindy made 2 agreements with a lawyer, one to defend Peter during the preliminary investigation, and the other to defend her brother in court. She paid for everything with the money she'd just gotten from the bank. Without putting the matter on hold, Ethan drove to Peter's place of detention. On the way, he dropped the girl off at work. While at the drugstore, Cindy couldn't find a place to go. They agreed with the lawyer that as soon as he got out of Peter's, he would call her, and they would meet in the park to tell the girl about the circumstances of the case. Upon hearing the call, Cindy asked for 20 minutes with a coworker and ran to a familiar park. Upon meeting, Ethan reassured the girl. Peter had been very clever. He didn't confess to the investigator that he wanted to buy the drug for resale. The sick mother theory would hold if Vanessa had ever been to the hospital. But so far, the version is the death of her husband and father, the ruin of the business, the deprivation of real estate, moving, and, as a consequence, the severe stress of the mother, the fear of going to the hospital of hope, to avoid being declared insane. And here's the result. The son wanted to help in this way found on the web information about the drug. He couldn't convince his mother to go to a medical institution, printed out a fake form from the internet, and went to the pharmacy. The positive moment in all this story is that your brother has no criminal record and has never been brought to administrative or criminal responsibility. I may be able to help testify in his defense. Careful, asked Cindy. No, you can't be a witness. Only your employees who were present in the pharmacy that day can testify in court. In particular, the pharmacist who resigned in a hurry. And in fact, you miraculously avoided questioning by coming to the department the day before yesterday. Apparently, the investigator was charmed by your brown eyes, the lawyer joked. Usually such strange circumstances like yours, immediately taken on the pencil. Tell me, what could Peter face for all this? Cindy didn't even pay attention to the compliment. She didn't care about that right now. I'll do my best, as long as the DA doesn't find anything else. Like your brother's accomplices. It's a good thing Peter didn't call his mentors or email them. And they discussed all matters strictly face-to-face. I'm sure these guys knew that they could check correspondence and calls. That's why they weren't supplied. And as for the sentence, as I said, it will depend on many factors, on the prosecutor, on the judge, on me, and on one more circumstance. What is that circumstance? No offense, but your brother is a gypsy, and that fact alone can serve him badly. We know these comrades very well what they're capable of. I see your point. But still, what's Peter facing? It could be a year. Probation could be a serious fine. It could be court-ordered community service. But it could also be 1 to 3 years real time. Cindy's pale. Don't get upset. It's not worth it. Ethan summarized. I'll stop by your mother's tomorrow afternoon. Will you tell her to be at home? I must go now, Cindy. I have to leave. Thank you for explaining everything to me. Goodbye. Cindy ran back to work. Yes, Ethan was a clever man, but how handsome. She remarked to herself, what the hell are you thinking? What am I thinking? She should be thinking about her mom, about herself, 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 about herself. If only it wasn't all for nothing. The rest of the time, Cindy worked like a bee, serving customers, counseling people on the phone. Every minute she tried to occupy herself with something to distract herself from her thoughts, especially thoughts about Mark. Did she love the man, or was she teaching herself to love him? How could it be that the conversation she had obeyed with Sophia had begun definitively and irrevocably? Rosta doesn't care about this immutable iceberg called love. Yes, Mark may be cheating on her or may have wanted to cheat on her. But how could she draw conclusions without talking to the person, finishing work, and taking the bus to her mother's house? Cindy dialed Mark's number. "Hi, what are you doing? How are things going with you?" The girl asked him. "Hi, I'm not really comfortable talking right now. I got held up at work. Mark, I won't be long. Listen to me for a minute." "Oh, come on, then you're not gonna dare." Okay, before Cindy took offense at Mark, she even now tried to justify his rude way of talking. But in fact, there was nothing to justify. She could hear the voices of guys and girls on the phone. Apparently, he'd stayed at work and they were celebrating. And she called him for the first time in 3 days and got this answer. Even if she didn't hear those women's voices, what difference would it make? When had she heard them all on Sunday? When Cindy approached Vanessa's house, it was already 9:00 p.m. The woman was sitting in the arbor in the fence, going through a basket of seeds. "Been waiting a long time for me?" asked Cindy's mom. "Yes, I've been waiting all my days. I took out a loan. She wouldn't give me a lawyer. He said he'd do his best to keep Peter out of jail. But still, the decision will depend on the judge, the prosecutor, and many other things. He could get a year's probation or a fine or community service." Vanessa cried, covering her face with her hands, just so that everything would be all right, just so that Peter would not go to jail. "Mommy, I believe everything will be all right," Cindy interrupted. Vanessa's crying. "I'm not trying to make you feel better, but I think this lawyer is a very smart man. And he's handled cases like this before. He also said Peter was very good. He didn't say too much under questioning. And he's got a good tongue. God willing, it would be so." The woman wiped her tears. "Thank you, my daughter. I'll be indebted to you for the rest of my life. I went to the sisters again today to ask for money to help Peter, but they wouldn't give it to me. They said, 'Don't go anymore, don't bother your eyes.' Mom, the main thing is that I have a job, and then we'll pay off the loan and I'll help you. As long as everything is normal with you and Peter. I don't care about anything else." Vanessa's daughter looked at Cindy carefully. "There's something you're not telling me. I can see you have a lot of sadness in your heart, but it has nothing to do with me or Peter. Tell me if there's anything I can do to help you." "Mom, can you see right through me?" I got scared. The girl smiled tiredly. "Yes, I really need help. But how? How can you help me? I have no idea. You tell me, and then we'll have an idea." Cindy sat down beside Vanessa and began to tell her everything that was weighing her down. Told her about her mother, about Mark, about Sophia. About accidentally overhearing a scary conversation on the phone about the intention to poison her. Vanessa gently interrupted Cindy and said, "Daughter, there's only one way to do this, but I know you'll give it up." Cindy did. The look would her own mother really offer her a fortune-telling? It's all so predictable. So the movie makers, a gypsy mom telling her daughter's fortune. That's hilarious. Does she have another option? Or she's forgotten who she found her mom and brother with? If she doesn't find answers in the next few days, she's gonna go crazy. Yeah, give it to Mom. Cindy waved her hand and stopped resisting what was happening. I wouldn't want to ever guess my own daughter. Vanessa picked up the cards. You can't peer into your children's fate. I've never guessed for you or Peter. How will you make your own life? That's the way it will be. But since it so happens that we don't know why a decent and beautiful girl wants to poison you, so we need to open that secret door, and the cards will help us. Vanessa shuffled the cards and asked Cindy to move the deck with her left hand. After asking a question, she began to spread the cards on the table. The woman sighed now and then and about shook her head, and still could not begin to speak. Mother, what's the matter? Don't be silent. Cindy couldn't stand it. An inheritance, daughter, for which they want to poison you. But what inheritance? From whom? From a very close relative. It's meant for you. That relative is alive. That's strange. And here comes a dead relative. I don't get it. So wait. Let's see your father, Alex. Is he alive? No. Alex is dead. He's not among the living. He's dead. Turns out the girl had her head down. What a pity I didn't get to meet him. Forgive me, Mom, for saying that. I realize that your father has caused you a lot of grief. It's just human nature. I'd like to see him. Maybe he thought of me once too. At least I found you with Peter. I've never looked for anyone, never even thought about it. What's school? What's work? And now I regret it. Don't blame yourself. Maria, all in good time. Alex left us. Not us. But if I'd met him, I'd have told him I gave you to someone else's aunt. And I don't even know where you are. The woman looked at Cindy. No, daughter, I'll never be able to make it up to you. Or will I die from my mistakes? Or do I repent and move on? What about Alex? Did he choose his own path? I loved him very much, but that's just the way it is. Vanessa looked carefully at the cards, and I looked at my father. Unexpectedly, Cindy asked herself, "You don't look like me anymore." He was handsome, but my blood wins out in you. Only your skin is light in your father's understandably light skin. Cindy sighed. A woman of age, but not old. Vanessa placed a few cards on the table. Next to her, you share bread and blood, know some secret inheritance-related secret. She wants to ruin you for it. To find out everything, you have to go to this woman's house as soon as possible. Vanessa looked lovingly at Cindy. But all daughters showed up tomorrow to your failed mother-in-law and will find out everything. Do you think Cindy came out of the gazebo? She will tell us everything just like that. And if she doesn't want to tell us, we'll scare her. We'll say that you recorded everything on your phone, and we have dirt. Vanessa neatly folded the cards and hid them in a velvet pouch. Would it work? Cindy stared into the darkness of the street. It'll work. You just have to help me. You have to go with the pressure for a reason. But tomorrow the lawyer wanted to come by and see you, Mom. Oh, right. What are we gonna do? I can't miss the meeting, and I have to do something to save you. No, Cindy, there's no choice. You're both my own children. Why don't you text Ethan half an hour before you get there? I'll be on the phone when he gets ready. We'll get in a cab and we'll drive back. Okay, Mom, I'm glad you're so adventurous. Cindy kissed her mother on the cheek. I also wanted to ask you something, but I don't think it's probably a good idea anymore. I'm waiting for you to ask about Mark, too. You looked at my life in the cards, and you didn't say a word about Mark. And what you say about him, daughter, I can see that. He doesn't love you. He had some feelings for you at first, and then it all went away like apple blossoms. He wants a girl who's loose, unbridled. He thought if you looked like a gypsy, you'd be just like him. And you, a modest girl, turned out to be decent. That's what this is all about. So it's my decency. Cindy grinned. Don't blame yourself, daughter, you're being decent. It's just that I can see you don't like him yourself. No offense. It's true, you've fallen in love with the first man you meet, who treated you well and promised you everything. What I don't understand is, with your beauty, why did you choose him? I'm sure you've had better suitors. Mom, you're looking at water, aren't you? I'm not surprised anymore. Yes, I've had some good guys and boyfriends. They offered me friendship, but I was so afraid. How can I explain it to you? I had a friend in an orphanage for a short time, but it didn't matter. Anyway, she's very pretty. She was a girl who graduated from school, went to college. It doesn't matter. So she studied. And so she kept telling me, I'm still young, fresh. I must find a groom. Do I have the right to be happy? She found a fiancé. He was a nice-looking guy. He had some kind of business. I think she was even jealous of me, afraid I'd steal him away, so we stopped talking. 6 months later, I'm standing at the bus stop, and suddenly I see her Helen. She's walking strangely, limping. Her face is all twisted. I walked up to her, and I was stunned. Not even a trace of beauty left. I said, "What's wrong with you?" And she tells me that this guy beats her regularly and slips her to his buddies. You know what I mean, Mom, what do you mean? I said, let's go to the police, and she didn't. What are you doing? He'll kill me right away. I have no family, no friends, no one to stand up for me. And his friends are all tough and connected. I told her, how can you let him abuse you like that? And she cried and said, why don't you know that orphanages don't treat us like that? And I took it for a reason. She was offended, I said. Maybe you shouldn't have chased riches and find a normal person to live with. Helen looked at me like that and said, look, don't let all this righteousness get you into trouble. That was the last time I saw her alive. 3 months later, I found out she'd hanged herself. Too bad about the girl. Too bad. Vanessa was sad. To kill herself in her prime. I feel sorry for her too, and ashamed. I am. I didn't do anything to help her. Then don't blame yourself, daughter, for chasing the good life. There's more than one girl like that gone. And about Mark, you don't have to think about it at all. He's no good for you. All right. The morning's the morning. Tomorrow we'll solve everything. Now let's go to bed. I've already put you up. The next morning at 10 o'clock, Cindy and Vanessa were already outside Sophia's apartment. Climbing the stairs, the girl stammered every now and then. Every step was so hard for her. She felt like a traitor who lied to her roommate about the business trip. Eavesdropped on the conversation his mom was still living in the middle of nowhere, with a suddenly declared gypsy mother, going to the showdown. The fact that Sophia wanted to poison her and Mark was trying to cheat on her was not taken into account by Cindy. The overwhelming event of the last few days seemed to override for her the significance of those horrifying moments, not hammered out in front of the investigator, the superintendent, and the lawyer either. Now Cindy felt like the same insecure applicant for a daughter-in-law as before. Noticing this, Vanessa stopped her and said there is no retreat, or now or never. If you don't protect yourself, no one will, and you don't owe these two people anything. You've been living as their housekeeper, and they wanted to rip you off too. Cindy and her mom rang the doorbell and waited for someone to open the door. 3 minutes later, there was a shriek and the door opened. Oh, Helen, hello. Who are you here to see? Hello, Sophia. I came with my mom. The woman entered the apartment. The mother-in-law's face changed in a second. Well, come in. I really wasn't expecting guests. You should have at least warned me, because besides potatoes and mushrooms, there is nothing to treat you with. Sophia looked haughtily at Cindy and Vanessa. Cindy didn't even have time to think of what to say. Vanessa didn't mind what she said and shouted loudly, Madam, we are not mushrooms. We have come to eat your grass, and we don't need it for nothing. How are you behaving, gypsy? A man in my apartment. The woman's face turned Bagrove red. Spare me from your mother. Cindy, you can see she's insane. I didn't come to meet you. I came to ask why you were going to poison my daughter. Answer me quickly. And if you don't, you know we have a recording of you and your sister talking about how best to do it. Nowadays, modern phones can record sound from a mile away. Sophia didn't look so furious anymore. She stood silently against the wall and held on to the door jamb. Cindy, seeing all this, pulled some papers out of a folder and continued. It is in your interest, Sophia, to tell me what I did to you that you wanted to poison me. If you continue to keep quiet, I will call the police right now and show them this audio tape, where you say you're going to give me special mushrooms. I've already spoken to the investigator of our neighborhood police department. He said I can come in any time and file a report on your intent to harm my health. Sophia literally rolled down the hallway onto a small stool, unable to utter a word. Stop. Don't, Cindy. What's the matter with me? Come in, sit down on the sofa. I'll tell you all about it. Mother and daughter went silently into the hall and sat down on the sofa. The sudden change in the mistress's mood made them feel pity mixed with disgust. Yes, so it's time to begin, Sophia says, very calm. When Mark was 7 years old, I met your father, Cindy. Alex. We started living together. Everything was fine for the first few years, and then he started to get, how shall I say, unhinged. He'd walk from side to side, or he'd sit in the same pose for hours. I couldn't figure out what was wrong, so I called him in for a serious talk. That's how he told me that when he was young, he had met a gypsy woman from our town. They moved to his grandmother's house. You could say they ran away. Then he started to have problems with his work. He started to pine in general. You know the rest. The woman looked at Vanessa with a sidelong glance. He didn't remember the incident for many years. As he said himself, he returned to his parents, worked hard, studied by correspondence. He met me later when we just started living. We didn't think about children. I already had Mark. I kind of and do not need children, but also work with the deputy head of the canteen. 300 people need to feed factory workers. Anyway, I thought our love would survive without a child together. But it turned out to be not so simple. Alex tried like a madman to prove to me that I should give birth to a girl. And I'm not used to being forced. I studied once secretly from him, even had an abortion. He accidentally found out about it and beat me for the first time in our life. After the abortion, or after the beating, I couldn't get pregnant anymore. Sophia cried. I went through all the doctors. They told me that you can't give birth this way and that way. I came home and told Alex everything. I wish I hadn't said anything. He became insane. He could just raise his hand against me at Mark. It wasn't often, but it still happened. Our whole life went down the drain. Then he thought about looking for you, Cindy. We traveled to a lot of orphanages together. But did we know what was so close? What was right under our noses? We thought you'd been given up near the village, not 600 kilometers away. A lot of kids have been revisited. I cried. I kept saying, let's take any girl from Chernivtsi and raise her as our own. But he wouldn't agree to anything. He tortured me and tortured me himself. We went to the maternity hospital, even to the village. But there wasn't a single record there. It's like you've fallen through the ground. And Alex's grandmother, Nina, had died by then. She called him before she died and apologized. He didn't even realize why. It was only afterward that he was able to make ends meet. Why did she apologize for you? Sophia looked askance at Vanessa, but he didn't think to ask her anything. Not your address or anything else. What information? And after that, there was no life. He drank all the blood out of me with that search. We went to the police, made inquiries. We always got the same answer. Not found. No information. I didn't want to lose Alex. I loved him. And when he was in his normal mind, he was a kind, hard-working man who brought every penny into the house. He was 6 years younger than me. Where could I go then? And even with a child. At first, Leshat and Mark had a very good relationship together. We played some stuff, we put up with it. I couldn't be happy until he started thinking about you, Cindy, night and day. Could have ignored Mark for weeks. Told you so well. You have a mother and a father, but my little girl, she has no one. I don't know how she's doing. And the first time Mark hit her, the right ones, then all friendship between them came to an end. Alex thought that his stepson owed him his life, that he had adopted him, that he was supporting him. Mark hated him. He hated me for living with him and not kicking him out. What's the joke of being a teenager? Guilt tripping? My psoriasis worsened from nerves. I lost my job to gnaw on myself. Started to think I couldn't have a baby anymore. Because of you, by the way, both I and Mark suffered. The woman glared at Cindy, and I was torn between my husband and my son. I wanted to live a normal life like everyone else. I tried to smooth things over. But how can I compete with the mistakes of the past? Against you, Sophia. But what does that have to do with me? Can you be specific about that? Cindy couldn't take it anymore. How was I supposed to know it was like this with you? I didn't either. If I lived in an orphanage, if I'm gonna poison someone, I have to kill them. How did you even know whose daughter I was without a photo? I have a friend who works in the city archives. She set up the information to find you. And when I realized that you, Alexa's daughter, I froze in place from shock. I hoped you were dead or somewhere in the foster family. But no, you're alive, and you're working right here. How did I get scared? I wondered if you get everything. So I decided to set you up with Mark, so that the inheritance would be ours. And you didn't even realize how it happened. You thought it was an accident. I sent Mark to your drugstore and told him you were beautiful. I wish I had a daughter-in-law like you, and everything would have been fine. But that womanizing fool almost ruined everything. So Vanessa got up off the couch. Maybe we should get to the point. You've been talking for half an hour, but it's no use. What inheritance? Talk fast. Why did you want to poison my daughter? Sophia got up from her stool. I'll tell you everything. Just promise me you won't go to the police. Is everything I said true? You may not believe me. You can blame me, hate me, yell, scream, but I can't leave Mark alone. If anything happens to me, it'll be the end of him and me. Sophia, you're blackmailing us now, trying to put some of the blame on us. It's not my fault that you and my father had such a life, and that Mark became like that to me and my mom. In case you've forgotten, he abandoned us too. But unlike you, I don't blame anyone for my troubles. Cindy came right up to the woman. I have no pity for you. Tell it like it is now, and don't try to tell a lie from a local parent. I can smell a lie a mile away, Vanessa added. Okay, Sophia went to the window and began nervously stroking the curtains. Alex had a close friend who was a lawyer. He asked him to make a will with special conditions. In case of Alex's death, everything will go to Mark and me. But if his own daughter showed up, everything would automatically go to her. This apartment, the car, the garage, and what's in the safety deposit box. I don't know what's in there. Alex died 3 years ago. His parents died a year before him. Is that what this is about? Vanessa sat in the chair again. That's it. I see the inheritance on the inheritance charts coming out, and you just decided to get rid of me for the apartment and the car. Cindy, I couldn't help the tears that came in. You ruined your mother's gypsy and our whole life. Sophia cried. I gave so much love to Alex nursing him when he got sick. And what in return? To go begging with my son in his old age. Cindy's dear mother cut the woman short. Have you ever tried earning your own money? You haven't earned anything yourself in all these years. The girl began to peel the fruit with all her might, all around for a splash of juice. Such a mixture of feelings Cindy had probably never experienced before. The feeling of euphoria and happiness from what she heard was replaced by heartbreak. Why hadn't she looked before? Why didn't she go anywhere? Maybe it was because she had been beaten into her head since childhood that her mother was dead and there was no one to look for. Did the people around the girl know the true state of affairs, or did they deliberately want to protect Cindy from unnecessary worry and suffering? How could she believe them? Why had there never been a similar circumstance with poisoning? She wouldn't even have had the thought that it was possible to address to the director of the orphanage, to the archives, to the passport office. There's lots of other places. Yeah, even people like Betty. The feeling of resentment at herself and dissatisfaction with the reception, which gave hope and more questions, turned into a severe headache. Arriving at the apartment, Cindy immediately popped a pill and fell into a dream. The next morning was no less interesting than yesterday. No sooner had the girl woken up and picked up her phone than she saw 8 missed calls. Anna Cindy had set the phone on silent and silent mode since the evening so that no one would disturb her while she was at Madame Cindy's. Without hesitation, she immediately dialed the superintendent's number. Anna, hello. What's wrong? I haven't turned in some reports. The girl's voice sounded confident and even rude. Cindy, I'm sorry to bother you. It's just the new employee quit. She got scared, I guess. We've had a non-stop incident. It's a long explanation. Could you come to work? Anna come out for a while or something. You know, I don't even know what to do. Maybe she'll come to her senses and come back. I mean, you're ready to shut me out again. Like there's someone better on the horizon? Cindy, it's definitely you I'm talking to. Anna, don't be sarcastic. I worked at your pharmacy for 2 years, and you fired me just because I didn't push expensive American vitamins on your customers. Expensive American vitamins, although I was selling our excellent vitamins with no worse composition. There was an awkward silence on the other end of the line. If you wanted to go to work, I have a few conditions for you. You must let me work in peace and not poke me for every pill not sold. And the second is that I get the same bonus as the other employees. I get the most customers on my shifts. And I'm not just meeting sales targets, I'm meeting them. Cindy, do you understand what you just said? I don't just understand, Anna. I'll tell you more than that. You've been taking advantage of me all this time and acting not like a professional, but like a person who only cares about profit. How many uncertified drugs have passed over your counter? How many people have you forced to offer those drugs to? And if any of them got hurt? Cindy, the voice of the superintendent, a hustler. Come to work today. I'll agree to your terms. Take it easy. Everything will be fine. Anna, I've already got some important things planned for today. But tomorrow, I'll be able to go on the second shift. Would you be so kind as to have the paperwork done by the time I get there so I can get to work right away? Okay, Cindy. We'll be waiting for you." Cindy put the cell phone on the nightstand and sat on the bed, dumbfounded by her boldness and non-toxicity. So that's how it works, not being nice to everyone all the time. Maybe Betty is right about swinging her kindness at everyone, though I won't jump to conclusions. My restraint has at least saved my life. But being braver is definitely something to be brave about. An hour later, Cindy was at the police station near the pharmacy where she worked. "Hello." Cindy walked up to the front desk window and leaned in. "I've made a good living. Once upon a time. But I told you I got sick. And with a disease like mine, not many people will hire me. Especially if it's a catering business." Alex knew how dependent we were on him, and still left us penniless. But that's your personal problem. Lady, they don't concern us. Tell me, where is this notary sitting? Vanessa is heading for the door. You'll get everything, Cindy, even without a trial. You just have to show proof of parentage. Sophia Mark knows about all this. No, he doesn't, so he won't understand why I made him marry you. He would have broken up with you a long time ago. I've been holding him back. I thought I could settle the matter with a little blood. But he's completely out of hand. Oh, that's it. And I thought you were with him. The girl was breathing hard. I thought he was treating me like that because he wanted to get rid of me too. But it turns out he just doesn't like me. It's easier than I thought. Daughter, let's go. There's nothing to do here. Yes, Mom, let's go. Cindy followed Vanessa, but stopped by Mark's mother. I'm not excusing my father, but I believe he had his reasons to do this to you. Of course, I'll do all the tests I need to and take whatever I'm legally owed. And thank you so much for doing this for me, by the way. Talking on the phone about the poisoning. For raising a son who is incapable of love. For telling the truth. Cindy, I really hope that for my heartfelt confession you won't deprive Mark and I of our only home. I really hope, Sophia, that you didn't poison my father with mushrooms when you heard those special terms of the will. And as scary as it sounds, no one has canceled the exhumation of the body. Cindy and Vanessa walked out of the apartment and slammed the door shut. Sophia froze in mute question. She didn't even have time to object or take offense. But Cindy's statement, this once quiet and girl, uncomplainingly bore all her nagging and scrubbed to a shine all the corners. Once it had been her and Mark's apartment. Now the woman was dumbfounded at how confident Cindy had become in the past 2 weeks. How easily she had brought her out. How deftly her experienced. For all intents and purposes, a man pinned against the wall. These 2 gypsies she had miscalculated. She had unthinkably miscalculated. Sophia sat down on the floor and cried. August 12 was very hot. Fallen in the greenery dacha plot in the village. Hospitably received guests at a round wooden table under the latest apple trees. Sat 5 people and drank tea with a huge pie. Ethan, thank you for helping us. Cindy led her guests down to a mug of tea. Oh, really, Cindy? The law was on your side. I was just scaring your frustrated fiancé. He really went to court in a frenzy, didn't he? He thought they'd believe him right away. I still feel bad about how low people can be. Accusing me and my mom of attacking Sophia. That I met Mark on purpose to steal my inheritance from them. No, they probably wouldn't even make a movie like that. No, sis, they won't. Peter took a bite out of the apple. If it wasn't for Ethan, it'd be over. I'd be sunning myself on a bunk somewhere right now. Don't say that. Vanessa intervened. What are you talking about? And in general, you need to think about what to do now. He's been sunbathing in the country for 3 months. Peter, he's planted a lot of beds. We'll eat vegetables all winter without looking in the stores. Cindy stood up for her brother. Oh, my daughter, I'm just embarrassed in front of our defense counsel. That's how they fought for Peter in court. I didn't even think anyone would stand up for my son. Who are we? Gypsies with no ancestry? Vanessa, I didn't do it for free, first of all. And secondly, I was so struck by your story that I couldn't do otherwise. The lawyer looked at the girl. By the way, Cindy, were you dating that Betty woman? Yes, I did. She's very happy for me and tried to tell me something else. She says nice, but I stopped her. I never want to know what the future holds for me again. So Cindy Maria's coworker put her cell phone on the table and got ready to talk. Let's be honest. If you, Cindy, hadn't accidentally settled in with me and picked up that African, who knows how things would have gone? Yeah, if I hadn't agreed to fill in for you then, how things would have been. The girl laughed and stroked a little rounded belly Maria. And in general, girls, Vanessa began quietly. There are a lot of these ifs in life, but someone was let down by greed and thirst for profit. We gypsies are often accused of that, for example, but you can't put everyone in the same category. After that incident with you, Cindy, the woman, lowered her eyes. I tried to live honestly, so my prayers were answered. Let's not talk about sad things. Cindy, why don't you tell us about yours or something funny? You've got tons of stories. Pash, the last thing I want to talk about is work. Too many events fell to the share of an ordinary pharmacist of the pharmacy panacea. Cindy has a better smile. I'll tell you what the letter I found in the safety deposit box says. It's a letter from your father, Alex. Peter asked timidly. Yes, from my father. I won't start from the beginning. It's very personal at the beginning, and only a few lines from the middle. Cindy took out a large folded piece of paper from her bag, which was lying beside the chair. I hope you have chosen a serious profession, daughter. Maybe it's a doctor, maybe it's a teacher. Maybe you chose a profession like my mom as a pharmacist. But just know that whatever you do, I'm sure you'll succeed. There are many professions in the world. Just pick something you like. The girl is silent. Wow, Maria got up from her chair. So your father suggested that you might be a pharmacist. That's quite a coincidence. Yes, I'm shocked at the coincidence myself. Cindy put the letter back in her bag. So if my daddy dreamed of me being a pilot, and I became a lawyer. What am I supposed to do now? Retrain myself. Ethan humorously sank in. No, you don't have to retrain. Vanessa patted the table with his palm. Do you have to get married? Everyone laughed. I'm all for it. The lawyer looked fondly at Cindy. I've chosen a case to my liking, and I want to choose the other half to my liking too. Oh, you've embarrassed me. Cindy waved, and black curls themselves in the rapids of the apples will throw down. Come on, eat faster than the fields. We'll eat any of your pies. It's so good. Even Mom doesn't cook. Peter winked at his mother and took an appetizing bite of apple pie. I'm glad, my family. Cindy looked at her family and smiled. Finally, my pies are starting to taste good.